So, last time we got to know the story of the Buddha, and uh, happiness is not a solvable equation. Yeah, that was the conclusion, the inference that the author made. So, I invite you to watch the previous one if you'd like to discover the story of the Buddha. And I added some details which were not in the book about that legend. So you will be able to also learn a few extra things about the uh, myth or the story of the Buddha. Okay. Now, the next headline is called "The Misadventures of Disappointment Panda." Okay. If I could invent a superhero, I would invent one called Disappointment Panda. He'd wear a cheesy eye mask and a shirt with a giant capital T on it that was way too small for his big panda belly. And his superpower would be to tell people harsh truths about themselves that they needed to hear but didn't want to accept. He would go door to door like a Bible salesman and ring doorbells and say things like, "Sure, making a lot of money makes you feel good, but it won't make your kids love you." Or, "If you have to ask yourself if you trust your wife, then you probably don't." Or, "What you consider friendship is really just your constant attempts to impress people." Then he'd tell the homeowner to have a nice day and saunter on down to the next house. It would be awesome and sick and sad and uplifting and necessary. After all, the greatest truths in life are usually the most unpleasant to hear. Disappointment Panda would be the hero that none of us would want, but all of us would need. He'd be the proverbial vegetables to our mental diet of junk food. The sentence was good. Okay, I'll read it again. He'd be the proverbial vegetables to our mental diet of junk food. Okay? He'd make our lives better despite making us feel worse. He'd make us stronger by tearing us down, brighten our future by showing us the darkness. Listening to him would be like watching a movie where the hero dies in the end. You love it even more despite making you feel horrible because it feels real. All right. Hello, I am a mouse bro. What is this? I just look. So this is the reading of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, a New York best-selling book. Okay. So guys, likes and comments and shares, you can support me, and super likes are also welcome. Okay. So while we're here, allow me to put on my disappointment panda mask and drop another unpleasant truth on you. We suffer for the simple reason that suffering is biologically useful. Okay? It is nature's preferred agent for inspiring change. We have evolved to always live with a certain degree of dissatisfaction and insecurity because it's the mildly dissatisfied and insecure creature that's going to do the most work to innovate and survive. Well, that makes sense, actually. Okay, let me read. I will. Okay, okay, I'm a mouse pro. Thanks. Yeah, we are wired to become dissatisfied with whatever we have and satisfied by only what we do not have. Mhm. Let me read that again. We are wired to become dissatisfied with whatever we have and satisfied by only what we do not have. This constant dissatisfaction has kept our species fighting and striving, building and conquering. So, no, our own pain and misery aren't a bug of human evolution. They're a feature. Yeah, the thought makes a lot of sense. There was one of, there was an Israeli president. I don't remember his name, but he said something similar about the secrets of the Jewish people. He said, "We are a very dissatisfied nation. That's why we invent so much. That's why we are so productive and successful." Because if you look at the laureate prize winners, if I'm not mistaken, around 24 or 25% are Jews, and they have contributed a lot in the sphere of medicine, agriculture, uh, I'm sure economics. Also, most probably they had not only Marx and those very famous guys, but also others. So it makes sense. Yeah, I loved this paragraph a lot. I think I will read this again for you guys because there's a lot of value in it. Okay, so hear me out. We suffer for the simple reason that suffering is biologically useful. Okay, it is nature's preferred agent for inspiring change. Okay, we have evolved to always live with a certain degree of dissatisfaction and insecurity because it's the mildly dissatisfied and insecure creature that's going to do the most work to innovate and survive. We are wired to become dissatisfied with whatever we have and satisfied by only what we do not have. This constant dissatisfaction has kept our species fighting and striving, building and conquering. So, no, our own pain and misery aren't a bug of human evolution, they're a feature. Okay? Pain, in all of its forms, is our body's most effective means of spurring action. Take something as simple as stubbing your toe. If you're like me, when you stub your toe, you scream enough four-letter words to make Pope Francis cry. You also probably blame some poor inanimate object for your suffering. Stupid table, you say. Or maybe you even go so far as to question your entire interior design philosophy based on your throbbing foot. What kind of idiot puts a table there anyway? Seriously. But I digress. That horrible stub toe induced pain, the one you and I and the Pope hate so much, exists for an important reason. Physical pain is a product of our nervous system, a feedback mechanism to give us a sense of our own physical proportions, where we can and cannot move, and what we can and cannot touch. When we exceed those limits, our nervous system duly punishes us to make sure that we pay attention and never do it again. Well, makes a lot of sense, right? And this pain, as much as we hate it, is useful. Pain is what teaches us what to pay attention to when we're young or careless. It helps show us what's good for us versus what's bad for us. It helps us understand and adhere to our own limitations. It teaches us to not fuck around near hot stoves or stick metal objects into electrical sockets. Therefore, it's not always beneficial to avoid pain and seek pleasure, since pain can, at times, be life or death important to our well being. Makes a lot of sense, right? But pain is not merely physical. As anyone who has had to sit through the first Star Wars prequel can tell you, we humans are capable of experiencing acute psychological pain as well. In fact, research has found that our brains don't register much difference between physical pain and psychological pain. So, when I tell you that my first girlfriend cheating on me and leaving me felt like having an ice pick slowly inserted into the center of my heart, that's because, well, it hurt so much I might as well have had an ice pick slowly inserted into the center of my heart. This passage reminds me of Dr. Joe Dispenza's philosophy. He's a doctor who has some interesting books. He talks about the placebo effect a lot and how with your mind you can amazing things for your body actually. So yeah, his books are interesting as well. I forgot the name of one of his best-selling books, but he's a very interesting author as well. Okay, Joe Dispenza, Dispenza. Right, like physical pain, our psychological pain is an indication of something out of equilibrium, some limitation that has been exceeded. And like our physical pain, our psychological pain is not necessarily always bad or even undesirable. In some cases, experiencing emotional or psychological pain can be healthy or necessary. Just like stubbing our toe teaches us to walk into fewer tables, the emotional pain of rejection or failure teaches us how to avoid making the same mistakes in the future. Okay? And this is what's so dangerous about a society that coddles itself more and more from the inevitable discomforts of life. We lose the benefits of experiencing healthy doses of pain, a loss that disconnects us from the reality of the world around us. You may salivate at the thought of a problem free life full of everlasting happiness and eternal compassion, but back here on earth the problems never cease. Seriously, problems don't end. Disappointment Panda just dropped by. We had margaritas and he told me all about it. Problems never fucking go away, he said. They just improve. Warren Buffett's got money problems. The drunk hobo down at Quike E. Mart's got money problems. Buffett's just got better money problems than the hobo. All of life is like this. Interesting. Quote, life is essentially an endless series of problems, Mark, unquote, the panda told me. He sipped his drink and adjusted the little pink umbrella. Quote, the solution to one problem is merely the creation of the next one, unquote. A moment passed, and then I wondered where the fuck the talking panda came from. And while we're at it, who made these margaritas? Quote, don't hope for a life without problems, unquote, the panda said. Again, quote, there's no such thing. Instead, hope for a life full of good problems, unquote. And with that, he set his glass down, adjusted his sombrero, and sauntered off into the sunset. Okay. Next, a little chapter. Happiness comes from solving problems. Okay, that this is interesting. Problems are a constant in life. When you solve your health problem by buying a gym membership, you create new problems, like having to get up early to get to the gym on time, sweating like a meth head for 30 minutes on an elliptical, and then getting showered and changed for work so you don't stink up the whole office. When you solve your problem of not spending enough time with your partner by designating Wednesday night date night, you generate new problems, such as figuring out what to do every Wednesday that you both won't hate, making sure you have enough money for nice dinners, rediscovering the chemistry and spark you two feel you've lost, and unraveling the logistics of fucking in a small bathtub filled with too many bubbles. Problems never stop. They merely get exchanged and or upgraded. Happiness comes from solving problems. The keyword here is solving. If you're avoiding your problems or feel like you don't have any problems, then you're going to make yourself miserable. If you feel like you have problems that you can't solve, you will likewise make yourself miserable. The secret sauce is in the solving of the problems, not in not having problems in the first place. To be happy, we need something to solve. Happiness is therefore a form of action. It's an activity, not something that is passively bestowed upon you, not something that you magically discover in a top 10 article on the Huffington Post or from any specific guru or teacher. It doesn't magically appear when you finally make enough money to add on that extra room to the house. You don't find it waiting for you in a place, an idea, a job, or even a book for that matter. Happiness is a constant work in progress because solving problems is a constant work in progress. The solutions to today's problems will lay the foundation for tomorrow's problems, and so on. True happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. Sometimes those problems are simple: eating good food, traveling to some new place, winning at the new video game you just bought. Other times, those problems are abstract and complicated: fixing your relationship with your mother, finding a career you can feel good about, developing better friendships. Whatever your problems are, the concept is the same: solve problems, be happy. Unfortunately, for many people, life doesn't feel that simple. That's because they fuck things up at least one of two ways. 1. Denial. Some people deny that their problems exist in the first place, and because they deny reality, they must constantly delude or distract themselves from reality. This may make them feel good in the short term, but it leads to a life of insecurity, neuroticism, and emotional repression. Victim mentality. Some choose to believe that there is nothing they can do to solve their problems, even when they in fact could. Victims seek to blame others for their problems or blame outside circumstances. This may make them feel better in the short term, but it leads to a life of anger, helplessness, and despair. Yep, yep, and yep. There is denial, and the victim mentality is something terrible. Actually, even in activism, in politics, victimhood is kind of mm, canonized. It is worn as a crown or as a coat by a lot of people. And historically, it came with Christianity because in Christianity, we're all guilty because Eve ate that fucking apple and we're all bad. The human nature is rotten. So, Christianity, from that perspective, is horrible. It is sadistic and masochistic. Um, so the political right had this, yeah, this victim mentality for a long time, but with Karl Marx, when he gave the same religious promise of brotherhood, which was actually given by the Bible and it failed, Karl Marx was like, okay, we'll achieve this brotherhood not through religion but through economics. So he invented socialism and communism. Yeah. So with that, what he did was he secularized religion or religious concepts, and he also secularized this Christian victimhood. So a lot of Marxists and political leftists, they're like, we are victim. Uh, we understand that we are persecuted because we are right, and it's okay to be a victim. It's good to be a victim, and we always need to help the victim, even if that victim is a criminal, because victimhood is kind of canonized. It is regarded as something holy or beautiful or worth emulating, copying. And that's terrible. With Israel Palestine, that same thing happens when people support, Palestine, which is basically run by deeply conservative fundamentalist Islamic ideas, and they're like, okay, Palestinians are victims, so we need to support them no matter what, even if those victims are killing the Jews, even if their dream is to destroy the whole of Israel, etc., etc. So, victim mentality is very common nowadays, unfortunately, not only in the far right, but also in the far left. Yeah? And it came from religion, I'd argue. Okay, let's continue. People deny and blame others for their problems for the simple reason that it's easy and feels good, while solving problems is hard and often feels bad. Forms of blame and denial give us a quick high. They are a way to temporarily escape our problems, and that escape can provide us a quick rush that makes us feel better. Highs come in many forms, whether it's a substance like alcohol, the moral righteousness that comes from blaming others, or the thrill of some new risky adventure. Highs are shallow and unproductive ways to go about one's life. Yeah. Sometimes this would happen to me. I would be inspired by a thought, or I would think of some project, and I'd be, oh, so good, so nice. And I would go to the fridge and I'd eat, although I wasn't hungry. Yeah, it's this emotional eating thing. Or I would kind of procrastinate. I would just lose myself in those moments. And I see it around others too. You know, sometimes people get caught up in very small actions, and that high sometimes even creates a headache. It makes some people very unproductive. So, yeah, beware of that. Much of the self help world is predicated on peddling highs to people rather than solving legitimate problems. Many self help gurus teach you new forms of denial and pump you up with exercises that feel good in the short term, while ignoring the underlying issue. Remember, nobody who is actually happy has to stand in front of a mirror and tell himself that he is happy. Highs also generate addiction. The more you rely on them to feel better about your underlying problems, the more you will seek them out. In this sense, almost anything can become addictive, depending on the motivation behind using it. We all have our chosen methods to numb the pain of our problems, and in moderate doses, there is nothing wrong with this. But the longer we avoid and the longer we numb, the more painful it will be when we finally do confront our issues. Okay, that's it. I love the name of the next chapter as well. Emotions are overrated. Oh yes. And in today's world, unfortunately, a lot of people are driven by their emotions and they deny logic. They're like, I feel this way, so this is the truth. Or I feel like, then, papa. Actually, once I was discriminated against by a girl, a radical feminist woman. I was invited as a trainer on sexuality, and this girl, later I was told that this girl said that I don't feel safe with Sevak. And that's it. And the organizer was also a feminist, although we were friends. But the organizer was like, "Okay, Sevak, dear Sevak, we have to cancel you because this one girl said she wouldn't feel safe." And I knew that girl. We worked together before. We were in the same room. We in different meetings. But I'm certain it was about my pro-Palestinian stance, and this cancel culture is so rotten that they don't even inquire. Only feelings, only emotions suffice. Yeah, that's enough. I feel insecure, and the other person who thinks this way, yeah, they won't be like, why do you feel insecure? Maybe we should invite this other person and you two should talk. let's inquire, let's learn more. No, 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 none of that exists. They're like, oh, okay, okay, your emotions, that's it. Then we take it, and we'll go with that, and that's it, which is not just, yes, which is stupid, which is discriminatory. Um, and yeah, in that, from that perspective, when we look at this, I am against this culture of victimhood, this culture of emotional decision making, which is irrational, which doesn't require inquiry, critical thinking, justification, etc., etc. So that's it for today. Thank you for following me. Again, if you watch this now, please put a like. Okay, give me a like. Super likes are also welcome. You can also leave a comment and let me know that you enjoyed this 26 minutes long live, and reading the book was something interesting for you. Subscribe to my channel so that you do not miss the upcoming readings of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, which is a good book. Okay, guys, that's it for now. Thank you very much. Since there are no comments, I think I'll just end the live now. So, high five to everyone. Thanks for having been with me, and see you probably tomorrow. Okay, have a good one. Bye bye.